That's right back, Charlie. Definitely.
You always use that active when defenders are being given like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Come on. As the big man and the legend Ian Wright just said there, people deluded, I'm back again. It's always nice to have a conversation and a chat with honest football fans, regardless of what team they support. So I'm happy to have you back, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm sweet, man. I'm sweet. Depending on the result on Saturday, I'm sweet. But I'm still on the high of beating Manchester City, something I didn't think was possible. Obviously, you know, I've got you here for a quick chat. I just feel Newcastle deserves to be a talking point. So I got a series of questions for you. The first thing I want to talk about is the Champions League, because, again, nobody's qualified from your group, but it was seen as the group of death. Definitely where Arsenal fans, Man City fans, and whoever else is in the champs was concerned. We're all like, yeah, we're happy we're not Newcastle, but you lot are doing the best. And you had a fantastic result against PSG. So what have you made of the Champions League so far? And obviously, how did it feel to see your team absolutely dominate PSG? Batter them, really, is the right word to put it, man. Kept Mbappe quiet.
Yeah, we did. Do you know what? I wasn't nervous going into the game. I was just more excited because I know a lot of people probably think, oh, that's like so tin pot and stuff. But like, I just was, because we just haven't been there for like 20 years.
Yeah, nothing to lose.
Yeah, it was just like no one was expecting us to go out there and batter PSG. Like, it was just like, we're just welcoming there. We're going to enjoy the experience of the Champions League. We did not expect to be there so soon. So I was just looking forward to it. And obviously, I know everyone was saying the group of death, but when I looked, I was like, you know what? When I watched these teams, I genuinely believed that we could beat anybody at home. Like, that was genuinely how I felt.
Every ground to go to.
Yeah, so I wasn't too like worried. I just thought, oh, it'll just go however it goes. Obviously, it went like a dream, like absolute, just perfect dream. It was probably one of the best performances that I've seen us put on. I think everybody was just from top to bottom was just 9, 10 out of 10. Like, it was just fantastic. And yeah, we managed to keep the likes of Mbappe extremely quiet and Dembele really quiet, you know. So it was good. It was fantastic. So yeah, I'm just enjoying it. We've got Dortmund at home next. Again, I think Dortmund were the team that I was worried about the most out of the group. They still are. But I think at home, again, if we have everybody fit, if we go out and have an atmosphere like we did against PSG, I genuinely think we can beat Dortmund as well. Maybe not as convincingly, but I do genuinely think we can beat them. And everyone was like, you know, Newcastle are going to embarrass us in the Champions League. Like, they're going to come fourth. Like, why are they even there? And I genuinely think that we'll probably go and win our group now, just based on the home games. So yeah, I just wanted to get out of the group. That was all I wanted. So yeah, the way it's going, I'll be happy if we do that.
Join the club, man. I just want to get out of the group. Obviously, you've got 4 points from 2 games. That's a fantastic fantastic points on the board. Where Arsenal concerned, we've shot ourselves in the foot against Lens, and we kind of have to beat Sevilla. So you mentioned it there in relation to Dortmund. Why was Dortmund the team that you was looking out for, the one that kind of caught your eye when the group was obviously drawn?
Just because of the way Dortmund play, especially the season that they had last year as well. Obviously, I know at the very last game, they obviously lost the league, but just the way they played last year, I think the way that they are at home as well, like, it's very similar in terms of like atmosphere, and obviously they've got the yellow wall and things like that. And that's what I was worried about, because they've got experience, they've got young players who are fantastic. The fact they'd lost Bellingham, I was just a bit like, that's better for us. Yeah. But they were just the team that I was worried about, because I had watched PSG several times this season, and I was like, they don't worry me necessarily. Yeah, they've been really, really iffy. And Milan as well, they'd been really dodgy for like a couple of years in terms of they showed up or they just didn't, and it was just like flat. So that's why Dortmund worried me the most. So yeah, but they still do at this point in time. So we'll see. It depends on how it goes at home. Obviously, then my opinion might change. But yeah, at the moment, I think they would be the ones that worried me the most.
How have you lot coped with the fixture pile-up? Because obviously you're in Europe, you've got to play the Premier League. You know, I'm pretty sure you've had a League Cup game. I don't even actually know if you lot are still in it, and we've got the FA Cup.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we beat Man City. So yeah.
You did. So there you have it. You know, you're basically in everything just like Arsenal. Both teams obviously come January. There's the FA Cup. How have you lot made of the, you know, just the more congested fixture calendar list? Has it been kind of a test on your squad? Have you struggled? Have you just passed it with flying colours? Like, where are you at with that?
Yeah, so I thought we'd really struggle, and that was the thing that bothered me this season. That's why I hadn't predicted as good of a season as last year. You know, I thought maybe top 6 was where we were at. And we've actually coped really well, surprisingly. I thought, looking when we in the Carabao Cup, I know City didn't have their first team out, and neither did we. But when I looked at the lineup, I was like, oh my God, we're not trying to win this game. That was how I looked at it. Then obviously we did end up winning the game. But there's players like who I wouldn't have trusted prior. So like Lascelles, for example, he's come in and replaced Botman, who we're not normally used to seeing being injured. He's been injured now for about 3 or 4 games now.
He's never present in your squad, yeah.
Yeah, he was fantastic last year. And Lascelles has come in now. I was like, oh my God, this is going to, if we're going to lose games and if we're going to leak goals, this will be the time. Lascelles has come in and played absolutely brilliantly. Like, genuinely, I could not fault the guy. Like, he's just been really, really, really good. So there are players coming in who, as I say, I wouldn't normally necessarily trust, but they're doing a fine job. Elliot Anderson, young from our academy, he's been really, really good in place of Joe Linton. Longstaff, again, having a really, under the radar, underrated season. So I'm just trusting everybody more than I ever would. And yeah, we've been okay so far. We're handling it okay at the minute, but we have had a relatively decent run in the league. So we've had like Burnley, Sheffield United, Brentford in the league surrounding the games, like Man City surrounding the PSG games. So whether or not that'll change when it gets to further down the line in the Champions League, and we maybe have more difficult fixtures either side. But yeah, at the moment, we're looking to be okay as long as we don't pick up any more, long-term significant injuries at this point.
You said it there, and it's like, obviously the beautiful thing about football, it doesn't really, to a degree, it doesn't matter what formations you do, what team you're playing, what sort of players you're putting out there. You just, that's the beautiful thing about football. It's not one on paper. But, to some non-Newcastle fans, maybe some internally, but to some Newcastle fans, you kind of said it there. You might look at Lascelles, Longstaff, Murphy, even though I think it's a bit harsh with him, and obviously Dan Burn, because he seems like a local lad. I like him. But many people would look at these players in particular and say, you know what, Newcastle, if you're trying to be a Champions League club, go far in the tournament or just build on what you're doing. These are not players you can progress with, but they've actually all been all right in the minutes they've played on top of, the other quality players you have. What do you think it's down to? Do you think it's down to everyone buying into Eddie Howe? Do you think these players just realize it's a once in a lifetime opportunity? Because if Newcastle get in here again and depending on FFP, respectfully to them, there might be some more glamorous players or players that have a bit more about them that will play in place of them.
Yeah, I think it's probably similar to how a lot of Arsenal fans felt, especially last season. And for the first 3 quarters of the season, there was that belief there. And no matter what, if you dropped a player out of the system and put a different player in there, the system still worked. It's very Pep Guardiola-esque because, I'm not saying we're as good as Man City or anything, but just in that sort of mindset where you can drop a player out of a system who you think is instrumental to that system, replace them, and the system still works as a whole. So I think that's a major thing. I just think the players are so well coached now. Eddie Howe is just such, even now, yes, everyone's seeing what he can do, but I still think he's so underrated in terms of his coaching and what he can actually do and what he brings to a team as a manager. Because, as you've just listed 4 or 5 players there who probably most teams in the Premier League would look and be like, well, we wouldn't even have
Joe
them in
Willock
our
when
team.
he's played for you lot as well. I've always liked him, but I thought, bloody hell, maybe at a point I was like, maybe we made a mistake getting rid of Joe. So you're right on that.
We've just improved so many of the players, and everyone is just working towards the same goal. There's ambition there. There's actually a belief that was just never there before for so long, that we can actually go on and do something really good with this club and with this squad. So I think it's a mixture of a few things, and everything just seems to be working together at the moment. Obviously it's good because even though our depth's not quite there, and I'll still happily admit that, there is players like we can chop and change now, and there is quality where we can still bring quality from the bench. So maybe Tonali doesn't play every 90 minutes, which he doesn't, but if Bruno has we take Bruno off, we can put Tonali on. That's a really good replacement. Isaac comes off, we can put Wilson on. There's still very impactful quality subs there that we have now. So which we haven't had that for a long time, which helps when we spend money. So I just think it's a lot of things, and it's all kind of working in everyone's favour and in a positive way at the minute.
Do you think Eddie Howe deserves more respect within the footballing community? Because again, you know, when you've signed, you know, Isaac, Guimarães, Tonali, wonderful players, you're in the Champions League, you know, you just got new owners. Many people see that and think, oh, do you know what? More household managers are coming in. And I rate what Newcastle are doing. There might be a time where maybe another manager comes in to get you over the hill. You look at when City had Pellegrini and all them guys, they kind of built the foundation for Pep Guardiola. That might come a time, but I actually rate the way you lot are going about things. You haven't got overawed. You've spent money where you can. You've brought in stars where you can. You've kept a core group of players, and I think you're reaping the benefits in many ways. You know, you've seen, you know, Conte and these kind of managers go to clubs and they have a detrimental effect. I don't think Eddie Howe has that. So do you think he deserves more respect?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously he's completely proved now that he can deal with the big boys, if you like. He can deal with the big games. Obviously we got to a final last year as well, but we hadn't been into a final since the 90s. Yes, the thing that annoys me most, I think, is when the narrative, well, yeah, but that's what money gets you. Well, not really, because for a start, if obviously, I don't know if anybody follows Swiss Ramble on Twitter, but they are really, really good with the finances in football. And we had actually £0 of investment from Mike Ashley in terms of his own investment in the club. So we were literally just running off what the club was making and things like that. He didn't invest anything in that squad. We barely spent any money. I mean, the season before the takeover, that summer, we only signed Joe Willock and it was on the last day of the window. So, you know, there was like, we wouldn't even pay a loan fee for Hamza Chowdhury before. So it was like, at this point, we're just playing catch up. I know, we're just playing catch up to every other team that we're trying to compete with at this point. But yes, we have spent money, but we spent it smartly. We haven't gone stupid and been like, there's 100 million on that player, there's 90 million on that player, because we actually physically can't, because we hampered by FFP, because obviously when City were taken over, just for, to use an example, because it's like obviously a similar level of takeover, FFP wasn't a thing, so they could just go and spend whatever they liked, really.
The numerous players they brought in, you're right.
We can't now, obviously, because there's percentage rules in place. We can't, but we have spent well. It's just our problem. We don't have, yes, we do now, but previously we didn't have sellable assets. So, for example, like the St. Maximin's sale, everyone was whinging about it, like, oh, that's shocking how he's gone to Saudi, like, it's not fair. When actually, if you look at it, he went for a lot less than we probably would have expected. I can't even remember the fee. I think maybe it's like 25 million. I don't even think it wasn't a significant fee. So even that, like, he was our most sellable asset, and that was all we got for him. So that was like, obviously it might change when, you know, Bruno's got a release clause in his new contract now, so it might change as we go further down the line. But yeah, we're just playing catch up, and unfortunately we don't have the assets to get our net spend up or anything like that. So we're just kind of biding our time at the moment. But I like the way we've gone about it. I think we spent smartly. We spent well in places that we've needed to. And we've got mostly proven talent in the Premier League. Like Anthony Gordon, for example, he's been our best player this season.
He's been a revelation. I can't lie. I looked at that side and I thought, oh, you sure, Eddie Howe? He's a decent player, but oh, I don't know. So yeah, that's another one that's done well.
He's been fantastic. Harvey Barnes, obviously, really upsetting because he's now injured till at least January, with a metatarsal injury. That's just a shame. So we've got him as well, and you know, we've got players coming back like Joe Willock, and I've never seen a fan base so excited to see a player come back from injury before. Like genuinely, everyone's just like, oh, I cannot wait till Joe Willock's back, and that just shows like
they got the Highlanders, man.
Yeah, how much improvement he's even had, because yes, that loan spell that he had was fantastic, but didn't hit the ground running when we signed him permanently under Steve Bruce initially, because he said, you know, he was homesick and he wasn't used to the setting and the environment, and that he really struggled, but he loves it now, and hopefully he can come back, you know, at least if not better than he had before the injury. So I'm just looking forward to seeing everyone come back now, really.
And I think you're bang on the money in that, you know, people can't get at Newcastle even if you were to spend money, because everybody's spending money. If spending money was that, then Arsenal would have been back when we spent what, 72 million on Pepe. United would be winning a couple of these league titles, and we've seen it, and so on and so forth. And I think both our clubs are kind of at similar stages, especially with what you said about sellable assets, in that in an ideal world, of course, in you lot's case, you don't want to sell Tonali, you don't want to sell Guimarães and Isaac and things like that. We don't want to let go of Saliba, Saka, etc. But players that may be on the fringes of things, they're not really going to be bringing in significant money. Like Balogun had a great loan spell last season, for example. He's what I would describe as a significant sell. We couldn't get Tierney was linked with you, but for one reason or another, he ain't gone permanently. Tavares ain't gone permanently. Lokonga ain't gone permanently. I wonder what we do with at some point with the Nelsons, the Nketiahs, potentially even Smith Rowe, who's once again been linked with you. So you're bang on the money. You touched on Tonali, and obviously we could be here all day talking about him from a footballing perspective. I'm sure you've probably offered your opinions and been asked. What do you make of this gambling stuff that he's been in? And do you think there's any connection or correlation or inconsistency, for example, in the way him and another former Geordie and Ivan Toney have been treated around that?
Yeah, I think it's obviously frustrating from a club point of view, because since the takeover, one of the things that the clubs prided themselves on is doing the background checks on and getting certain players and certain profiles and personalities to come and fit into our squad, which is why it's worked so far. Obviously the club thought that Tonali would be right for that. There was a thing around at the time where we had gone in for Barella. Obviously Inter had said Barella's not for sale unless it's like over 100 million. We just don't have that kind of, yes, we have the money, but we don't have that leeway, as I said earlier, to spend that money. Tape still and then it was kind of, we were took by surprise because Tonali's agent approached our sporting director and said that there might be a deal to be done there. And that was widely mentioned at the time, and it was took by surprise because actually Tonali was Eddie Howe's number one target, but he thought it was unattainable at that time. Like a childhood Milan fan who's going to be next captain, who's, you know, alleged to a Scudetto, under 23 Italian player. It's just not like that he's going to leave Milan. It's just not. Really leave it as well. So obviously now that seems a bit fishy, because it's like, why were you ready for him to leave at that point? I don't know if it's literally a complete coincidence. I do not know. But obviously it seems a bit fishy at this point that's happened. I do genuinely hope he gets the help that he needs if it is a gambling addiction, which it's been reported that it is, and I do hope he gets help he needs. Luckily the club is supporting him in that, and they're saying that they are. Yeah. And I do believe that they are. And he is only 23. If he gets a year ban, he's still got his whole career ahead of him. He's only going to be 25 at the most when he comes out of this ban. As long as he keeps his mind right and gets the help and obviously gets over that addiction, then I still think there's a player to be had there for what we've paid for him. It's just obviously a waste, because this season we've got the extra gains that we need, his quality in.
Signed him for this very reason, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We were just starting to find his feet. I do obviously, a lot of people who will follow me and stuff know that I'm extremely outspoken on how players are treated in the media. Especially in terms of racially, and one of those people I've called out on numerous occasions. I don't think this time,
pick up you on that.
Yeah, I don't think this time it correlates only like in terms of the players. I don't think Tonali's being treated better because he's white or anything like that. I don't think that's the case in this specific way. I just think everyone was waiting to hate on Tony. I think the FA made a massive mistake in the timing that they brought the charges to Tony, because it was obviously prior to the World Cup. He was probably almost likely going to get called up at that point. And I just think the timing of that was very, very bad. But from a personal point of view, I had said the same. I said I hope he gets the help that he needs if it was an addiction that he was had at the time, which it was obviously he said that he did. The only thing bad that I think Tony's done was that interview that he did, because I don't think he came off well in it.
Didn't help himself at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, he really didn't. And he obviously was like pretty much blaming everybody else but himself. He didn't take any responsibility.
A serious lack of accountability, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I understand that maybe he doesn't want to talk about it and he's ashamed, and I get that. But he just kind of blamed everyone else. And he did actually say in that interview, like Stephen Bartlett said, could you have stopped if you wanted to? And he was like, yeah, I probably could have. And I was like,
you know, it's crazy. It's like, obviously he could have went on that interview of his own accord, but you would imagine him and his agent have strategically gone on the platform like that to kind of get his word across. Obviously he's a human being, but humanize the guy.
Yeah.
They must have been briefed on the questions. He must have been briefed on how to speak. And like you said there, nobody thought that was a bad idea. Nobody thought post-production, like maybe we should leave this thing out. I mean, if he wants to wear his heart on his sleeve and talk how he wants to talk, that's fair enough. But I agree with what you said with that interview. I also feel he comes across as a bit disingenuous to a degree to Brentford, because they've stood by you. You know, I'm sure there's a segment.
He said quite a few bad things about Brentford, hasn't he?
Like, even the Arsenal-Liverpool thing, I was like, you haven't really said anything wrong, but I was like, oh, really? You're kind of flirting with both, kind of whoring yourself out to a degree to get that move. We all know you've got 18 months left on your deal and you've got a new agent. So I don't know, man. How do you feel about gambling in football anyways for footballers? Because on one hand, for me, I don't think you should do it. I think there's rules. But then I look at it, fans have a bet. Everybody has a bet. The sponsors are bets. The billboards are bets. Like the footballers are subconsciously seeing it every day. Some are even doing sponsorship events. So in theory, you could argue, should it not be a thing? Like, I don't get it personally, but what's your view on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a mixed bag for me because obviously players know the rules there. It's explained several times. The rules to you as a sports person, you know that you cannot bet on the sport that you are involved in specifically. Obviously, I don't know the wider rules around betting, but I know in this specific case, like with Tonali, you can't actually gamble when you are part of the Italian FA.
And then he's part of a wider ring, really. A couple of Italian players seem to be caught up in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, it's probably different in different FAs, but I find it really hard not to empathise with players because a new betting sponsor shoved on the shirts, a new betting sponsor shoved on the grounds every week. It is literally the whole point of advertising is to get people to, sign up to your platform. It's shoved in your face. So I find it
even
really
when you watch
difficult.
the games on Sky Sports, there's them adverts with Sky Bet.
Like even me, for example, doing the overlap, it's sponsored by Sky Bet. It's so deeply ingrained in this sport. And people that I posted that on Twitter the other day, and I was like, I find it really hard to empathise with players. And they were like, yeah, but you've got Sky Bet in your bio. And I was like, yeah, exactly. Like, it's so deeply ingrained in this sport and in sport in general in the world. That's why I find it really hard not to empathise with players and with people who have these addictions, because it is shoved in your face at every opportunity. And players are no different. They're human. Even though they do know the rules and they face the consequences, they are still human beings and they experience the same desires and temptation and interest that we do as normal people. So yeah, that's why I struggle with the relationship with betting and gambling within football and the punishment for it. It also really annoys me that the punishment for gambling and betting within football seems to be worse than if you are racist or anything like that.
It's ridiculous.
That really frustrates me because I think you are like racism it's inherent in this, not even this country, just in the world in general. So I really struggle with the kind of punishments for those things, because Tony's getting 9-month ban or whatever. Tonali's looking at a 12-month ban, whereas teams or countries who've gone and played games and their fans are being racist have got a £20,000 fine. It's like
and a partial stadium closure.
That frustrates me. So that's another element to it as well. But yeah, it's a frustrating kind of point of view, and until football, obviously, hopefully it changes in the next few years, because obviously they're taking gambling sponsors from shirts and things like that from next season. So hopefully the relationship improves and it changes over the next few years. But I doubt this will be the last case we ever hear in terms of Tonali. There'll be more like this. And yeah, I just hope that there's more support there for people who are struggling, players or not, just regular people as well.
I think you're bang on the money. And I always feel like with us, we could probably list literally a handful. Definitely not him. Paqueta, a fellow Brazilian, Ivan Toney, obviously Tonali, and a bunch of the Italian players. That's a handful. So it always makes me wonder if they're the ones that got caught, how frequent is this? Because it has to be rife, and they're probably all doing it for different reasons. Some of them probably have got more money than sense. And when you've got a lot of free time, some have probably been doing it since they was a little kid and not old enough to obviously sign up. Some people probably had nothing to do with betting. They tried it once. They probably won once, and then, as you know, you're hooked from there.
It's like Trippier. Even
Trippier, another one. I completely forgot about him.
Atletico. The reason he got banned was because he told his cousin to lump money on him going to Atletico before it was a thing. So he wasn't even like betting himself. He told someone too.
He's trying to help someone make money.
The market ended up being ruined because someone put 200 grand on Trippier going to Atletico. So it was just one of those things.
What's all this about?
He got banned for 10 weeks as well for that. So it's just
it's a tricky one, man. And I would say education is key, of course. But then I think about it, these lot know gambling is bad. Like I forgot the other. I wish I should have done my research. The other guy that kind of got caught up in Tonali sort of case.
Is Zaniolo?
Yeah, like he was saying. No, it's not Zanolio. I think it's Fagolio or Fagoli.
Fagoli. Yeah.
His one. I was reading his, and he was saying like, You've probably seen it. He was saying that, you know, I'm down a couple. Some of my teammates, I owed them money, and he said either he made a mistake or he scored a goal, and he started crying. And he said, I wasn't crying because of the game; it's because of kind of the deep hole I was in and things like that. And I know in Italy, you know, when you go down the lower divisions, you know, there is a lot of gambling in Serie D and things like that. So you do have to wonder: are these players just pawns in the game? And then I wonder on a deeper level, like how many transfer donnies, scouts, all of these managers, even, you know, because these are the ones that got caught. Everybody's got to, everyone's an exaggeration, but everyone's got to quote unquote be doing it. So as you said, I don't think this will be the first or the last. You know, give it a few months, there'll be another one. My last question for you before I let you get out of it would actually be in relation to Bruno Guimarães. As you said, he signed a new deal. He's a wonderful player. How long do you think he stays at Newcastle, and what is this release clause, and how much is it if it's been made public for you to
So the release clause, the only person I've seen actually report on the release clause is Fabrizio Romano. I have seen nobody else mention it. No other person who's reported on the contract mention it. And it's supposed to be 100 million. Now, a lot of people will look at that, and I think even our fans will look at that and be like, oh, that's not a lot of money. But actually, it's 100 million outright, which is a lot of money for a lot of clubs. There's probably only 5 or 6 clubs in Europe who can actually afford to pay 100 million.
Absolutely convinced this is your man, similar to us with Declan Rice or Chelsea with Caicedo, really. And like you said, there's like 5 clubs there. There's
only a handful of clubs who can actually afford to pay 100 million pound outright for a player. I just based on, obviously I know players are never going to go into an interview and be like, well, I don't like it here, I might move on in a few years. You're not going to say that. Or well, unless you're Ivan Toney, but you're not going to say that. But he genuinely loves it here, and
you can see that.
Yeah, he's really, really taken.
If you didn't know he's Brazilian, you would have thought he grew up around the corner.
I know he loves it. He said when he obviously announced that he was pregnant again with his wife, he said, "Oh, I can't wait to welcome another Brazilian Jordan in the world." He doesn't need to say that because, like, his family life's completely separate to the team, but he's just took in the area so well, and just the fans and like just the culture of the Northeast.
A match made in heaven.
Yeah, he just loves it, and he's always said, in loads of interviews before, like the Players Tribune and stuff, GQ, he said he's a very sentimental and emotional person, and that's why he struggled growing up as a kid when he was playing football, because he let emotions get to him. I've seen it on the pitch with him before. He's emotional. He's very highly emotional, and I just think it's a match made in heaven with our fans, because our fans are so loyal and so emotional and so, like, because of how we are as a club and how we are as just people in general in the Northeast are just, we love and we friendly.
Live for football.
Yeah, right, it's football's our lives in the Northeast. So I think he really loves it here. I honestly, at the end of the Man City game, Pep came over to him and was like, "Oh, you're amazing." And he was like saying all this stuff to him. And I was
started it.
Yeah, he started putting doubts in it, and I honestly genuinely think this. I know people might call me deluded and they're like, "Oh yeah, but it's because it's your team, you're biased." But I'm actually probably, because I'm a football fan, I look at stuff without bias sometimes, and I just look at stuff realistically. I honestly think the only team Bruno leaves for is Real Madrid. I just do not think he leaves for anybody else. It'll be Real Madrid, because that's what Brazilians dream of playing for, Real Madrid. So South Americans in general, I just do not see him leaving for another Premier League club. Obviously Liverpool fans are getting all in the knickers and the twist, like, "Oh yes, we're going to put an offer in from the summer." Like, do you genuinely think
I don't see
you wouldn't even pay that for Jude
from
Bellingham? So do you genuinely think you're going to then turn around
unless a miracle happens, and then you still need to convince him to move to the club if that's what he wants?
So I just honestly do not think, especially now, because the thing that worried me was the wages, because obviously our wage structure is still relatively low compared to the teams that we are now competing with in and around. Like, Bruno was our highest earner anyway, and I think it was like 160,000. Obviously, that's loads to normal people, but in terms of football, I think his wage is now probably going to be around 250 a week. That is what I think. So obviously now it helps us in a way, because we can start rising wages of other people, and we can offer bigger wages now than maybe we could to other people before. So that was the only thing that worried me, if he was going to move for more money. But I genuinely don't even think that was specifically on his mind. I just think he wanted, like, because honestly, you could see it was playing on his mind, this contract thing. Once it was announced that it was sorted, he's been back to his best again, like unbelievable. But before that, it was just playing on his mind. He just wasn't playing with the freedom that he had. It was like, you could tell he was on edge all of the time. So I think now, obviously, that's improved. And the release clause doesn't necessarily bother me, as I say, too much, because I think there is only a handful of clubs who are going to outright pay 100 million, if that even is the clause. Because as I said, it's only Fabrizio who said it. It's not even like David Ornstein didn't even say anything about it. So, you know, you just don't know. But yeah, I think we've got him for a while. Yeah, I think at least another 2 years, and then obviously we'll see where we're at that point. If we're still, you know, competing where we are at the minute, or if we've won anything by that point. I don't know. That might be a bit premature to win anything. But yeah, I do think the only team he leaves for is Real Madrid.
I think you touched on two good things. I think people sometimes think, oh, well, you know, on the best of days, people look at footballers as robots. But if your family's comfortable, if you've got a young family, obviously as a footballer, you move up and down all the time. But, you know, you've got a young family, you buy into the system, you know, your Brazilian passion, the Geordie passion, it's a match made in heaven. Clearly, your family's comfortable. The club is moving with ambition and doing things the right way. They're bringing in other stars. They're looking like some of the players that maybe people wouldn't have looked at twice are looking amazing. You're excelling. You know, you've got the love of the fans and the club, so there is no reason to leave. Obviously, I couldn't begrudge him if Pep Guardiola was to convince him, but I don't think right now you've got anything to worry about. I would love to wake up tomorrow and Arsenal had 100 million and we get everyone that's Brazilian down over there to talk to him. But I agree with you. I think it will be Spain. I think it will be a bit where maybe Henry's not the best example, but if Newcastle are still ticking along, but they try a different project and he's at the peak of his powers, he might have a decision to make later down the line of, okay, as much as I love this club, one day I'm going to be 30 odd and I'm not going to be the Bruno I am now. Naturally, they're going to have to move me on. So do I move on in that case? So I have no regrets. But I agree with you. I think Real Madrid is the only club for him, potentially Barcelona. And then obviously because of this alleged release clause of 100 million, then, you know, as you said, 5 odd clubs, you know, you can't rule out Paris Saint-Germain. They need it really more than you lot, arguably. It rules them out. So I don't think you've got anything to worry about. And I think, you know, with him, with Isaac, with Tonali, I think that will help out your FFP because it's a bit like us. I don't expect Saka, well, hopefully, but I don't expect Saka, Odegaard, Saliba, Martinelli, players like that to be here their whole career. But because they're tied down under the contracts, if and when the time comes, if we can get top money for them, then obviously if you was to get 100 million for Guimarães, that's 100 million that helps you around FFP really and truly. In fact, my last question actually, because I've got it here, where is Lewis Hall? Like, I haven't seen him play for Newcastle. I'm not watching you lot religiously, but like, where is he? Like, that's my last question.
So I think he's played minimal minutes. He hasn't played that much at all. But this is totally Eddie Howe's MO. He did it with Bruno. He's done it with Tonali. He does not start a player all of the time when you've just signed. Like he just kind of beds them in because I think he doesn't want to have 18-year-old Lewis Hall with the pressure of the games that we've had so far. I did think we were going to see him for a full 90 against City because I didn't think that we were going into that game to actually win. I just thought we just didn't care about the Carabao.
Playing it for the sake of it.
I thought we weren't bothered. Then obviously we ended up winning, so it was just one of those things. But I do think that we'll probably see him more if we stay in the Carabao Cup again. Obviously, we're not going to see him in the Champions League. We're just not, because Dan Burn's playing fine there at the moment.
Playing out with skin. Big up him for getting a new deal as well.
Yeah, big up him. I think we're going to, this season, it'll be about the new deals for players. Fabian Schär's, the next one, he's going to get a new deal shortly. So, we're not going to see Lewis Hall, I don't think, at the moment, until we kind of really on form and we've got, like, strung a good few wins together, because we have at the minute, but not enough still. We're still 8th in the league, which is not, it's just not where we want to be at the minute. And I just think when the games kind of come thick and fast towards Christmas, obviously we've got FA Cup in January as well to come, I think then we'll start seeing a bit more. But at the moment, he's not going to be a starter. Livermento, on the other hand,
completely forgot about him. Quality player, robbed of the career with injuries at
and
the
he's
moment.
played for us a couple of times now and he's looked really good. He's just slotted in straight away.
So
for me, that shows Eddie Howe trusts him to come in, and he is eventually going to be Trippier's replacement. That is why we got him when we did, because we wanted
an option on the left hand side, or an added option.
Exactly,
on the left-hand
it's
side.
versatile. So I think we'll see more of Livermento than we will Hall this season. But we'll hopefully Hall still improves and he gets, that's what I trust about our club at the minute. I don't mind players sitting on the bench because I think you're still going to improve, you're still going to get a chance, and you're still going to do work off the pitch to kind of keep on going. So I'm still excited to see him because, again, he's a boyhood Newcastle fan. His dad's from Newcastle, so
that's what I was wondering, where the hell has he been? Because I thought you couldn't wait to start.
Dan Burn, you just kind of get past Dan Burn at the minute. Like, you just can't. You never
playing out of his skin,
as the song goes, never ever beat Dan Burn. But you can't drop him at the minute. He's just he's fantastic. So unfortunately, unless we see him on the wing, I just don't think Lewis Hall's going to get a look in much anytime soon. Even though I rate him as a player, I think he's good.
I think you're bang on the money. And I think the best thing throughout our chat, and actually just Newcastle fans in general, is, you're one of the biggest clubs in England, in my opinion, regardless of trophies and that. Just, really, I don't like to use the word religious, but religious following. It's one of them grounds, I believe. Like, if you was a foreign player like Kamara, just for argument's sake, he's never played for you lot. They're the games that tell you what the Premier League's about. It's not necessarily playing the top six. It's a culture shock. On top of how good Eddie Howe and Newcastle, deployed themselves against PSG. Honestly, I think that played a big part. I don't think the PSG players, on top of the weather, knew what hit them really. So it's nice to see your fans got smiles on your face. Lord knows you went through hell with Mike Ashley and things like that. So yeah, you're back on the money. Before I let you get out of here, you've got to let people know where they can find you, man.
Yeah, it's just Kendall Rowan on all socials. Obviously, just I'm here and there and thereabouts, doing things for different people. Just kind of like, I was obviously doing stuff for TNT last week and BBC, and not last week, sorry, the week before, the PSG game. So there'll be more stuff to come with that in terms of Champions League and things like that. But yeah, if you want to catch me, you'll catch me about on some channel or some podcast, or I'm here quite often as well. So yeah, if you want to follow me, you'll find me there. Appreciate you
on as well, man. Happy to keep having you on the channel, man. People, you don't need to get onto her and tell her to be consistent with her own YouTube channel and have a central hub, man.
To be fair, do you know what? I really planned it, and then after the PSG game, I got COVID, which turned into pneumonia, which was just like, damn. I was just like, damn it! I literally that was the time I was actually gonna do something, and then it's just stopped now. But hopefully, and now I'm over the worst of it, we'll get back on track and we can crack on, because there's so many good games. We've got in terms of Newcastle fans, we've just got so many good games coming up over the next few months. So yeah, a lot of content to be had there, really.
So yeah, people, you lot follow her on all her platforms. Get onto her, spam her mentions until she's consistent on her own YouTube channel. Kendall, it's been amazing. Let you enjoy your evening. Thank you for tuning in and offering me your Newcastle thoughts and stuff in general. As usual, I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, as always. Absolute pleasure.
Mine, you're always welcome, man. And on that note, people, hit the like button, subscribe, follow everyone on all the socials. We're out. Bless. Safe.
There's always just that active red flag, defenders. I think it's like